Less than 5 seconds, so we don't get a DMCA notice, right?
Oh, dance party. Lock this bad boy out. Let's roll. Hello and welcome to Wi-Fi Optional, the weekly tech show where we talk tech so you don't have to. This is episode 13, recorded Monday, February 15th, 2016. And I'm Jason, as always, and with me is my friend Rukshan.
I'm here.
How are you doing, sir?
Present and accounted for.
With the hand up in the air. So what's new in your world?
Not much. Same old, but trying to stay afloat in the game of tech.
Exactly. Well, let's get this show rolling here, and then let's ping the news.
Dive. Air 53 gets legal. We talked about Air 53 last week. A law firm by the name of PCVA is filing a suit in the Northern District of California looking for $5 million in damages, free repairs for customers, and a software update to fix the Air 53 problem long term. In a press release, PVCA said, quote, "If security was the primary concern, then why did the phones work just fine, sometimes for several months without the software update? Air 53 only rears its ugly head when downloading a newer version of Apple's operating system," end quote. They actually do have a point, but looks like the issue we talked about last week is it's going down for real, as as you put it before the show.
Don't get working down. Jeez, man. No, in all reality, it's a really interesting point to kind of take because, is this a bug fix done by Apple to fix a security glitch, or is this a not a planned upgrade, but I guess a DRM almost for Apple, in a kind of a way. So I don't know. I mean, I see where they're coming from, but still, it's gonna be interesting how this one kind of turns out.
It's kind of like the John Deere issue. All over again.
Yep. And it's always been a problem too, not to get off the subject, when the crossover between hardware rights and software rights. You know what I mean? Through history, there's always been things where, kind of one oversteps the other, or one kind of gets in the territory of the other. And is this the hardware, them protecting the hardware to software, or is this just like I said, a security glitch that they fix with the software? Staying in the world of mobile, AT&T on Friday announced plans to start testing 5G technology with a possible limited commercial rollout before the end of 2016. 5G offers the promise of besting the speeds of today's fastest wireless networks by a factor of 10 to 100. Though the use of millimeter waves, through the use of millimeter waves, network function visualization, and software-defined networking. Through the collaboration with Ericsson and Intel, AT&T will be ramping up its efforts to bring 5G to its market starting the second quarter of this year. Interesting thing because 4G wasn't that long ago, and now we're talking about 5G, and it's one of those things where you start talking about how fast these things are going to be, and that's one person on a cell site when they test it, but how is it actually when you put a load on it, or what kind of other factors are involved with this? Does this go as well through walls, or what what really happens with something like this?
Right. And is the 5G actual 5G, or does it go by the industry standard of what 5G stands for speeds? And the other thing I have a little bit of an issue is they're talking about software defined networking. That to me screams data bandwidth. There's going to be it's going to be controlled through the data layer. And I think we all know how well our data penetration and network coverage is here in the US. So sure, you can do all these things if you have the bandwidth, if you have the coverage, and I don't know.
Going to pay for it too. I mean, that's the thing.
Right, exactly.
Involve the more control they have on limiting things as well.
All right. Next item we have, it seems like we're talking about these stories over and over every week. Hacker posts stolen data on FBI Homeland Security employees online. So the U.S. Department of Justice and Homeland Security on Monday announced they are investigating reports that a hacker broke into government computer systems and stole sensitive information about employees at the agencies. The hacker posted stolen information for about 9,000 DHS or Department of Homeland Security employees online and made public data on 20,000 FBI employees using a compromised email account of of DOJ employee. He used social engineering to get into the agency's intranet and download 200 gigabytes of files. The hacker explained to Motherboard, uh, the online news website. After failing to penetrate a DOJ web portal, the hacker said he phoned a government department, acted like a newbie, and was given a code for accessing the portal by an employee. Once inside the portal, the hacker said he gained access to the computer used by the person whose email he had compromised. From there, he had access to DOJ's internal network. Another case of oops. Well, I don't necessarily know if it's oops. I mean, you can put all these security layers into play, but two things happened. One, he did hack in, looks like, but then he used social engineering, which is the weakest layer is the human layer in all this, and looks like he penetrated that.
Well, it comes back to what we talked about last week, where it's a convenience, where the convenience and security thing are on a sliding scale with each other, and so basically, you've been there, we've all been there. The new guy doesn't forgets his password, or doesn't know how to get into something. Instead of making him feel like an idiot, you help him out and do something. Well, in this case, it wasn't the new guy; it was somebody else outside the company or outside the corporation. So social engineering is one of those things that it's always hard to fix. It's like phishing. It's not a direct stop this exact thing kind of situation. So it's one of those times where it's kind of a mix between tech and social.
I agree. Yeah, it's going to be a hard one because I mean we're going to have to stay on our toes, and I like you said, how hard do you want to make it? Are you going to make it so tough that it's just practically impossible to use anything? Or I mean, there's three main things, when it comes to security. What what you are, and what you have, and where do you draw the line?
Exactly. Keeping on a lighter note, the Hollywood Reporter has posted an article claiming multiple sources say that Apple has their first made-for iTunes original series in the works. The 6-part series will star and also be produced by the one and only Dr. Dre himself. The series, titled Vital Signs, is going to consist of 30-minute episodes labeled as a semi-autobiographical It's just labeled as semi-autobiographical and as a dark drama with no shortage of sex and violence. The idea was pitched by Dre himself and would be his next foray after executively producing Universal's 2015 blockbuster Straight Outta Compton, which grossed over $200 million worldwide itself. So this is interesting in that this is kind of an Apple theme we have going in the show, but Apple's kind of getting into the Netflix and Amazon of producing their own content now, which is something I thought they'd do a long time ago, but it seems like one of their acquisitions a few years ago, Dre, is kind of the one that pushed for this finally. They've done smaller things, like more music oriented things of behind the scenes with Taylor Swift and I think DJ Khaled and everything like that, but this is the first time they're going to do an actual series and not just a little video blurb.
If there's one thing that I can give Dr. Dre credit for, that is his ability to market. He's got the Beats product down, and he's got the movie Straight Outta Compton that he had a big hand in, and now this. He's a great producer, makes great music, and now he ventures off into on another tangent, and he's able to capture that market as well. And Apple has, now they're using the Beats embedded audio in some of their MacBooks, and yeah, this guy's good at making money. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he's definitely good at making money, and maybe that's kind of the twist that Apple needs. They've always been so, plain and vanilla in certain areas that maybe this is kind of the new edginess, I guess you could say, that Apple needs. But I guess we'll find out. Um, Kind of transitioning into our discussion topic, like I mentioned, we've kind of been on the Apple bandwagon this whole time, and our discussion topic goes back into that again with another bug that has been found recently with some of Apple's hardware / software. They found recently that there's a 1970 bug where manually setting the date of your iPhone or iPad to January 1st, 1970, or tricking your friends into doing it, will cause it to get permanently stuck while trying to boot back up if it is switched off. The date bug affects the iPhones, iPads, iPod Touches with 64-bit processors running iOS 8 or 9, including the new or the iPhone 5S and above, the iPad Air, iPad Mini 2, and any of the other 6th generation iPod Touch or newer versions. So this kind of goes back to the situation we were kind of talking before the show. Is Apple kind of losing its grip on being, everything's buttoned down and perfect, and all these bugs and not planned glitches like the Air 53, are these becoming a trend, and is that a bad thing for Apple?
Well, first of all, welcome to the Apple show. And second of all, yeah, you have a good point there. I mean, are they actually losing their edge? It almost seems like in the past few years is when we've seen a lot of these vulnerabilities and a lot of these issues pop up with Apple. Now, does that mean that Apple's, their programmers are losing their touch? I don't know. Does that mean that technology has evolved so much that now they're kind of getting into a plateaued mode, and they're trying to push it over the edge? And is that actually causing an issue? It's tough to say, but it seems like that this doesn't necessarily mean there's a security bug. First of all, don't try this, because the last thing we want is a whole bunch of hate mail if you can't get your phone booted back up. Looks like this is actually not an actual exploit or a vulnerability, but it's more or less a bug. Nobody's actually come out and said what the root cause of this is, but a lot of people have analyzed it, and it sounds like there's something known as the Unix epoch, basically a way that Apple tells time. So when they first came up with the Unix kernel, they figured out we need to have an easy way of displaying time instead of or reporting time, instead of saying, there's 12 months in a year, some months have 30 days, 31, and then randomly there's a month that comes in 20. We got to figure out an easier way. So what they did was they used January 1st, 1970, 12 a.m. as 0 hour, and they basically started a stopwatch from that point. So from there, they can calculate, okay, today is December 16th, the 2009, how many seconds has it passed? That's how it uses it. So what this does is on these Apple devices, it rolls back. But Apple actually, somebody, when they programmed it, they actually did think about this, and you can't roll it back past January 1st, 1970. You can't go back to 1969, December 31st. It stops there. But it seems like what causes the issue is not so much that. So you roll it back, and then when you restart your phone does all these other checks in the background, like, say, for example, it could be your call log, it could be your voicemail indicator, it could be your SMS, and then it pulls up those dates, and it looks at that and goes, whoa, hold on a second, I'm supposed to display a date that rolls back. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what to do. I'm going to crash. It seems like that's what's going on. And I think you and we talked about there was something similar that actually happened in a game way back in the day.
Yeah, apparently this was something that harkened back to the fun days of Civilization, where the character
now we're actually aging ourselves.
Exactly, Age of Empires and all that fun stuff. But Civilization, the character Gandhi, started with a score of 1. And basically the way the game worked is the higher the score was for the enemies or from other people was the more ruthless and tyrannistic you were. So he started as 1 because he's Gandhi. That's pretty obvious to say. But there was a bug where he kept losing points. And when he hit 0, instead of subtracting 1, it would basically loop him back around to the highest level of points, which would make him into basically an evil character and start wars with everyone.
Kind of like a Rolodex. You go from 1 to 100, and then if it only store to 100, well, what happens when you put 1? It just basically loops back. So it's just doing it in reverse. He's at 1, loses a point, goes to 0, loses another point. It can't store a negative value, so it loops back to the highest available value.
Yeah, exactly. And then he starts stabbing people in the eye with whatever he's got. So at least that doesn't happen with your iPads or anything like that. But it's still kind of an interesting story where things kind of resurface after time. But so correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of take this as almost like a Y2K bug, not really, but kind of almost the same kind of thing where it comes the date calculation that Apple wrote in, thinking that no one would ever set their date back to 1970. And the only thing I can think of is why people would ever do this is either A, by error, but B, as I know that there's some non quite legal ways to get around certain apps and certain purchasing requirements for things on the App Store and things, that where if you set your date back, it'll actually cause them to work and give you free things and things. I don't know if maybe this is a kind of a side effect of someone doing that, but it's just kind of interesting how these things, how many of these things are out there that until someone sets their clock back or their time back to 1970, would you not find them? You know what I mean?
Right. And there's always going to be vulnerable, I shouldn't say vulnerabilities, bugs kind of like this that we don't know about them. These are the ones that people are finding out. And you had a really good point. That's one of the big things. It's not so much that these script kiddies and these kids are trying this for fun, and again, don't try it for fun. You're probably going to break your phone. But it's that if you have a phone that is jailbroken, or if you have a phone that has a piece of malware that's installed on it, or somebody could maliciously run a piece of script inside your phone that would automatically roll it back to 1970. And the other part of it is it seems like when Apple developed the software for the phone and for the 64-bit operating system, it almost seems like they siloed it, because on one side it seems like they put enough precautions to say, okay, we know the Unix epoch is there, we're not going to let you roll it back beyond 1970. So they put that in place. And the other one is you can't just take the phone and just roll back to 1970. You have to stop halfway, confirm, and then continue going. So they did put some legitimate fail safes in place. But at the same time, on the other side, if you do it, it crashes your phone. So does that mean that you had two groups of developers? One side actually said, yep, we're going to work on this, and the other side said, oh, well, we don't need to worry about it. And then next thing you know, they marry the product together, everything works, until all of a sudden you find a bug.
Or you look at it this way, as a development thing where one person's working on this and they find this bug and they go, oh, we'll take care of that later, and all of a sudden it's March 14th, and the new iOS is going to be released on, or the new phone, 64-bit phone is going to release on March 15th. And, they're like, oh, crap. And what do? They just create a little confirm button that makes you stop scrolling instead of actually fixing it.
Right, exactly. So, is that what happened, right?
Is it laziness? I mean, like you said, it almost seems like they had to know what was going on if they created some kind of switch to stop you from rolling backwards. But in the same sense, how do you test something like that? Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just wanted somebody not to be able to. I've done that before on things in the iPhones. You roll it, and all of a sudden you're 6 years past where you're supposed to be. You're trying to set an alarm clock. You're trying to set a calendar event or something. So maybe that's just the general function of how that works. But it just still seems kind of odd that would happen. But But kind of getting back to what we were talking about before, is this something, there's other articles this week that we didn't bring up in the news, but people are kind of losing their faith. We talked about last week that stocks dropping in certain companies, and they're just not seeing the growth in Apple. But is there also cracks in their armor when it comes to just the Apple mantra? Are we kind of seeing a revert to the 1980s and 90s Apple, where they really take a downspin? As it's a cyclical thing for them, where the Steve Jobs came back, they went up and have been up and up ever since, but now they're kind of on their way back down.
And the other thing is, what more can they improve? I mean, it seemed like when Apple started, they made innovation after innovation. I mean, they're the ones that got rid of the floppy drive. They're the ones that got rid of, they made it happen. And I remember reading an article where, they said nobody's going to buy a computer without a floppy drive. Everybody uses floppy drives. And then Steve Jobs stood his ground and said, nope, the next Apple is not going to have a floppy drive. And sure enough, the Mac came out with just a CD-ROM drive, and I was like, that's not going to fly. But look at where we are now. Nobody uses floppies. So they've all. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying it's almost the same thing with CD-ROM drives.
Right.
The MacBook Airs and things, they really did ditch those things a bit thinner and smaller and lighter. And nowadays, every Ultrabook and everything, none of them come with CD-ROM drives anymore. I mean, it's an extra thing either you have to order with a laptop, or it's a dongle attachment that you put on. So I mean, they've even killed off something like that, which beyond floppies, like you said, I can't believe that's something that has happened that fast. So it's just like you said, they've made these innovations, but where are they kind of going now?
Right. Where exactly, you push the envelope, you push the envelope, you push the envelope, and now you're up against the wall going, okay, what do we do? And so does that mean that they're going to start releasing software and possibly hardware that is, I don't want to say subpar, but it's prone to bugs like this? Are they more concerned about going to market versus coming out with quality products?
Well, that's the thing, is I think, for a while they seemed to float after Jobs passed, but it almost seems now like like I said, the cracks are kind of starting to show. And I think they had things in the pipeline with the watch and with other things that have kind of kept them afloat at this point in time. But I just don't know if they have enough going forward, enough creativity with what they have, and where else do we go? The biggest things we have now is the self-driving cars. The biggest thing, they haven't really done anything with that yet that we know of. VR is the next kind of biggest frontier. They can go those kind of ways, but the thing is before the things that they came out with, there wasn't really a good MP3 player, and they came out with one. There wasn't really a good touchscreen phone, and they came out with one. Everything else is kind of already jumping them. They're not that cutting edge, front of the line product anymore. So what, where do they kind of go from here? I guess it's just one of those things we have to wait and see what happens.
And they have a tough market to survive in. I mean, Huawei just announced their brand new flagship phone that's $199 or $195, something like that. It comes with a fingerprint scanner, and it's got a chrome back. Fantastic phone. And so now Apple has got a $550, $650 phone that has to compete with a $200 device that does just as many things does exactly the same thing, just a different operating system. Apples versus oranges. So I don't know, but it certainly is going to be interesting to find out what this 1970 bug is going to do. And now they're facing a potential lawsuit with the Era 53, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's
going to be an interesting playing field for sure.
They kind of feel like a canary in the coal mine kind of thing with the tech industry too. If you see Apple fail, you kind of don't have good hopes for the rest of the industry as well. But guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to wait and see. And the way things are going, sounds like we may be talking about this every week for who knows how long.
It's been almost 3 weeks now. We've hit on it at some point in time. So I think we've hit our allotted time. And funny enough, I'm still here which is a win in
I know we haven't lost you. That was 2 weeks in a row, and that was like clockwork. And then you were gone.
We were talking about before the show.
Act.
Yes, I think I may have fixed the issue before the show. So hopefully, knock on wood, that we don't have that issue come up anymore. But we should be fine going forward. Hopefully, kind of wrapping things up. I kind of like the format we've used here. It's going. I think it's going well. I don't know what else we could really change. If anybody has any suggestions, let us know. It's kind of a basic format that most people use, but kind of putting our own twist on it. I don't know, Rukshan, if you have anything to say. I know we talked about pre-show when it comes to how we kind of go about the show, but it seems to be working for me.
Yeah, and it seems to work for me too. And just like you said, if there is anything, let us know. And the other thing is, if there's something we should be talking about other than this, let us know. We're always open for suggestions. We just go in and grab our news just about every day, and surprisingly enough, we seem to have an Apple story every day.
I'm not paid, I promise. So. But closing things out, though, I want to thank Purple Planet providing the music from our show today. You can check them out at purple-planet.com. And a very special thank you to the listeners for liking our show. And don't forget to subscribe down below on this video. Lets us know that you like us and like what we are producing here. So you can also find us on iTunes for the audio version only. And as always, you can contact us via our website at www.wifioptional.com, Wi-Fi Optional on Facebook and Twitter, or drop us a line at Wi-Fi or info@wifioptional.com. From everyone here at Wi-Fi Optional, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.